Unfortunately, folks, it's time for another episode of Page Bait. That's right, that is the show where I read the first 3 pages of some of the most popular books that I know nothing about and give you my unfiltered opinion, because we all know there are not enough unfiltered opinions on the internet. Today's book was once again selected using my highly scientific process of a 2-second Google search, which brought me to a book called The Swan's Daughter, which is apparently like the most popular book of 2026 or whatever. So let's have a look-see at this book and see what makes it so popular. Here it is. We have this beautiful pink and purple cover. I like that. I like pretty illustrations on covers, as you all know. Let's take a look inside. Past all this boring stuff. Here we go. The Swan. Araminta had no reason to suspect anything would be amiss with her hatchlings. For more than 100 years, Araminta had hoped and waited, and now, finally, it was happening, and she refused to be anything but joyous. So the Swan's the mom. I kind of thought that the Swan was the dad, and maybe it was Zeus, because, like, when we don't know who the dad is, I just kind of always assume that it's Zeus, but who knows? Maybe her dad and her mom are both swans. In the manner of the Veritas swans from whom she had descended, Araminta had brooded her for 6 years. Her long golden hair grew ever more thick and lustrous until a terrible itch set into her scalp. She's a swan with long golden hair. Is she like a human swan hybrid? What is going on here? I think Zeus might have actually been involved in this, just maybe further back in the genealogy. For a whole month she paced the polished stone floors of Hush Manor. Her husband, the wizard, Prava, concocted all manner of potions to soothe her, and for the first time, Araminta did not fight his draughts, but a dozen of them made no difference. This is simply how it is, she said miserably as she scratched at her head. Prava was a monster, but he took his duties as a husband with uncommon solemnity. What can I do to help? This does make him better than Zeus, I will say, because, I mean, Zeus doesn't care about his duties as a husband, like, at all. Araminta sighed and stared longingly through the carved windows. If one were to look at Hush Manor from a distance, one might remark that it looked as though the manor had been built atop a pile of clouds. Perhaps that person could shake their head in disbelief, convinced this was mere folly and a trick of the weather. But as it so happened, Hush Manor was built upon the clouds. Long ago, a handful of lazy cirrus and cumulus could not be bothered to stay in the sky, and so they had dropped like apples onto the Silent Lakes district. Once there, they had slowly hardened until they were sturdy as the surrounding black oaks and silver elms. But although they had made their home on the Isle of Malice, their nature was still that of the clouds. In the evening they thundered and lightninged and skittered through the translucent blue-gray bellies, and despite possessing no desire to move through the sky, sometimes they could not help but drift in their sleep. One night, one might look out the window before bed and see the morning pond, only to wake up and find oneself on the other side of the soundless mirror by dawn. This was where the wizard Prava made his home. In his mind, the location was kindness to his wife, a reminder of the clouds that had once been her home. Usually, Araminta found it more of a cruelty than a kindness, but this particular week she was grateful for any reminder of the sky. I need a place to nest, said Araminta. When our daughters hatch, I want their first breath to be only the sweetest and coldest air. Prava took his wife's warm hand and kissed it. My love, I shall have the most wondrous nest for you by nightfall. Araminta harumphed and kept scratching her head. I think she's I tried to figure out if she's a swan like metaphorically or theoretically or in some other fancy way. Sometimes she seems like an actual swan, but then she's got like long golden hair. Then again, I have seen ducks and geese with like some crazy hairdos, so maybe she's just one of those like breeds of swan that has like like long poofy curls. This is what I get. You see, I do no preparation. If I just read the book description, then this might actually be answered for me and I wouldn't have to do all this guesswork, but I was just too lazy to do that, so here we are. The wizard Prava hastened to his quarters, which took up the entire north wing of Hush Manor. Here he had his study, his room of experts, his chamber of mayors, in which he conversed with other wizards of import, and, most importantly, his library. The library lay beneath a dome of polished crystal. The floor was nearly hidden beneath the colorful rugs of woven silk and tufted armchairs. Prava could not remember what the walls looked like, for the library's remaining space had long since been taken up by leather-bound tomes, vellum scrolls, and a couple of unsettling novels printed upon thin slices of bone and bound with human hair. Ew, that's nasty. But could he have used his wife's hair? Was it human hair or was it goose hair? I still am not sure. I don't know. Don't know. It's making me upset. The moment he entered the library, the books fluttered in excitement. The novels, which tended to be anxious, shed a few pages, oftentimes prologues, for these were considered largely useless, hoping to gain his notice. Yeah, this is true. Some of his books did not even wish to be read, but longed to be used as tables for mugs of tea that might only be sipped from once or twice before being sacrificed in the pursuit of endless daydreaming. Settle, settle, said the wizard. Araminta is brooding, and I must make her a nest, which amongst you shall help me. The books quivered. A few of the cookbooks dustily settled back on their shelves. After a few moments, a shy, slim volume of pure white drifted towards them. The book was freezing to the touch, and the pages within were delicate panes of frost etched in the small, crimped writing of Atos, mountain scholars. Prava opened the book and felt the secrets of the wind and the snow rush through his thoughts. He smiled. Whoa! Whoa! That we're already at chapter two? What is happening? Well, I have to read at least one more page because that's like the rule of this series. So here we go. Here we go. The wizard becomes a father. Now, I don't think that the wizard is a swan, which raises a lot of questions. I mean, it never stopped Zeus's lovers, so I guess some people are into the whole swan thing. We'll see. By nightfall, the nesting tower was ready, which was good because Araminta had begun to pull her hair out by the handfuls. Prava found her in the kitchen, walking in circles around the great hearth. Araminta did not normally venture into the lower levels of Hush Manor, but brooding had filled her with strange cravings. The cooks had offered bone marrow stews and hearty loaves of full-milled seeds, butter cakes, and wintry berry porridge, but Araminta wanted none of that. Oh, the very thought of such foods turned my stomach, she moaned. I don't have any pondweed, or perhaps a salt marsh grass. Goodness, what I would not do for juicy little tadpoles, and algae cakes, perhaps a couple of spiders. Is this like a shifter type of book? Like she like a were swan maybe kind of deal? When she began scouring the kitchen for lonely beetles, the cooks fled. That's what it took to get them to flee from this strange humanoid swan situation. Beloved, announced Prava. Araminta honked. Okay, oh, she's honking. That's good. That means maybe she's full swan. I don't know. I'm scared. Veritas swans were breathtakingly beautiful women. Not my questions are just like I feel like that's supposed to answer my question, but it just makes more questions. But their natures were still swan-like, and as such they were wildly aggressive and prone to squawking. If you have not come bearing a basket of Wygian grass and dragonflies, then I must beg of you to leave me, she said. I have something better, said Prava. He snapped his fingers and a delicate glass staircase appeared at Araminta's feet. Every time Prava performed magic, Araminta felt the familiar tug of wonder coupled by the small wave of revulsion. She glanced at her husband, who was smiling. They had been married some time now, and from the moment she had fallen in love with him, he no longer bothered to hide his true form. Prava was tall and lean, with auburn hair that curled around his jaw and accentuated the slender knives of his canines. His eyes were speckled green. with vertical black slits like serpent. He was handsome and looked to be somewhere in his third decade, though he was far, far older than that. But he's not quite a human either. Okay, well that brings us through page 3, and I definitely have more questions than answers. Like I'm wondering, is this book based on some mythology or fairy tale that I'm not aware of? That it maybe it would make more sense to me if I was aware of that? Possibly. I don't know. I don't know what's happening here. And maybe some of y'all know what's happening here and you can explain it to me because I'm not sure. We got people who are kind of human but kind of not. And they've got people who are swans. I don't know what's happening, but maybe if I had the context, maybe if I had bothered to do any kind of research on this book, it would all be perfectly clear to me. I don't know. Enlighten me if you want to. And if you found this video in any way enlightening or informative or helpful, I am absolutely shocked. So, anyway, you can go ahead and like and subscribe to literally any other channel because this one absolutely sucks. And until next time, happy reading, I guess.